Talking over a cuppa, holding back the tears. Finally, it's over. We survived our worst fears in our heads. Psychological warfare, never knowing when it will stop. But we care about each other. Finally, the first hug, and then we have another.
Is there anything more comforting than a warming cup of tea? Made exactly as you like it. For me, 2 tea bags. It's too strong with 3. Left to stand for 5 minutes for the perfect viscosity. Then just the right amount of milk, semi-skimmed and not fat-free. But I know many people who beg, please make it weak, they plea. Just show it the bag for a second. To me, though, it looks like Nat's pee. I call it a cup of what's the point, but it usually benefits me because I can use their barely used bag and add it to my one. Do you see? Now that's an economy saving on what is a big hug in a mug that wraps its arms around you. It feels like a warm, cushy rug. And then there's another dilemma, to dunk or not to dunk. I think it depends on the biscuit. Soggy crumbs make a messy gunk. We all know how we like our tea, and it's lovely to sup on our own, but there's nothing like getting together for tea and biscuits and to have a good moan. Yet coffee mornings, 11s and afternoon tea are currently a thing of the past. So instead we Zoom with our mugs in our hands, but still manage to have quite a blast. Whether you favour coffee, tea or cappuccino, or maybe it's just water you drink, there's something about sharing it with others. It's still a hug in a mug, don't you think?
Very good.
Brilliant.
The setting sun shines on the water, glistering so white it sparkles silver. Trees stand guard at the river's edge. The surrounding fields skirt the headland wedge. No sound of nature to tune the ears, but the view gave me the lost love of years. If I turn tomorrow into a pillar, where else to stand, where similar? A natural setting to even wow the gods. A haven of tranquility, oh, I thank you, God. To return again when spring beckons and study the sublime estuary in sections. To relive the moment that my surmise became such a greeting of surprise.
Nose high-bridged and aquiline, or tiny, short and cute. Skin creamy pale and interesting, or like a ripening fruit. Eyes grey, brown, hazel, sparkling, large, clear, blue or green, or small, dull and humorless, calculating, mean. Lips pink and rosy, ends upturned, revealing gleaming teeth, or thin, closed, sulky, concealing harsh words trapped beneath. Hair clean, shiny, fragrant too, whatever style is taken, or dirty, tangled, needing care, unlovely and forsaken. Bodies too are variant from tips of toes to shoulder. How fortunate then that beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Grasping talons tear at shimmering flesh of fish, eaten alive, can't hear its cries. First the nose, the mouth, head sense all gone, splay her wares when comes she soars, floating in, intentioned on the breeze.
A freezing cold morning, school jumper, coat, black school trousers, icy roads and the sun shining in the distance. Overwhelming feeling of tiredness and no sleep, hours of school ahead. The morning brightens as I pick up my friends from their houses nearby and off we go, walking to the bus stop. Freezing cold, chit-chat, almost time for school as we wait for the school bus to arrive.
When I was small, we used to go camping for our annual holiday. We were 2 families, and to begin with, we all travelled together in an ancient Ford 8 car. It was grey and massive, and the 7 of us were squeezed into it on the Friday night, the camping gear in a trailer towed behind. Dad and Uncle Ernie sat in the front, Dad as navigator and Ernie as driver. The rest of us, my mum, my sister and I, Auntie Betty and Linda, all squashed up in the back. We would travel overnight, and in the early hours of the morning, being the only one awake, it was my job to keep the driver awake. I remember one memorable time when we arrived in Cornwall at dawn, and the landscape opened up in front of us, beautiful, with only Ernie and I to appreciate it. It was a pattern that repeated itself on many occasions, but that one stands out for me.
A lot of great things have happened to me since I left childhood. I found my calling in performing arts. I found acceptance and enjoyment. Yet through theatre, I learned that there are many flaws through it. People are selfish, people are liars, people are shallow. I cannot give up though, because my love for theatre is that strong. To be a child again, so to cherish the lack of dreadful people. Yet when I learned that not all people are like that, I experienced professional societies who are greatly accepting and do not use people. One day I'll get there, and I will be happy to be a member, but all the wiser from what I've learned.
I left school at 15 and went to work in a woolen mill factory. So, and the bus used to come at 5:30 every morning and pick us up, all up to take us the 10 miles on this coach journey. And so I wouldn't kind of want to go back to that, but at the same time, there were so many interesting people that I met. So that was wonderful. And it was about learning about different experiences of life, really. Childhood wasn't a place I would like to go back to. But saying that, there was compensatory things like the love of nature and animals that has always been with me throughout and is very sustaining.
I haven't done this journey, but I really must do this journey. It's the train journey, actually, between, I would imagine, Swansea and Carmarthen, that goes past Machynnes over the Lachowich and then goes down sort of like Ferryside. I often see the train passing and I often think, gosh, what an amazing sort of journey that would literally be. It must be very beautiful, just with the sheer locations that you go through. So I'm going to put it out there and say that I'll spend a few quid in the next year and try and go on that train journey. I often see the people on the train and think, wow, that must be amazing to actually do that journey. It must be one of the best views, I think, from a train in the UK. It's got to be.
My journey was going on the 175 bus, which was behind my house up where the blocks of flats were, because we didn't have a car at the time, and we used to get the bus into Romford and then walk round to my nan and granddad's house. But I loved going on this bus because it was an old-fashioned bus with the spiral staircase, the conductor with the tickets. So my love of this 175 bus that I used to catch was brought into a Christmas present that I received this year. So this year, my husband Chris, he bought me the actual sign from the 175 bus to Romford, and that's actually the bus I used to catch, and I love it. And that was my Christmas present this year.
A letter to myself, not quite completed. My dear Maggie Ann, it appears your determination paid off. School's county singles tennis champ, as well as hockey captain. Fancy getting 12 O-levels when your father did not want you to stay on at school. Your love of music, well, that was and still is top of your list, together with books. You wanted to teach English and ancient history. But do you remember how upset you were when your father gave you one of two alternatives? Either you went farming with him or you went nursing. Nursing was your choice.
My life has been one long travel, one place or another. So one of the times I managed to combine journeys with what I was studying. And fairly recently, about 20 years ago, I went across to the Silk Road, and we crossed into China at the far end, which is where this one end of the Silk Road was, and we were in Kashgar. And but going into China from Uzbekistan, it was a very high pass, and the pass, the customs houses between Uzbekistan and China were about a mile apart. Now, we were a group of about 15, I'll call us elderlies because we weren't young, and we had to walk and take our cases and everything uphill because we're in the middle of the mountains from Uzbekistan into China. Now, China, the customs there actually had time constraints, so we had to be there by 12:30. We missed it by a few minutes, unfortunately, so we had to sit in the middle of the hot sun, no shade, no growth or anything nearby, very rocky and stony underfoot, and amuse ourselves for 2 hours until it reopened again after 2. Fortunately, we had food and water with us. So a group of us, a school friend and myself, with whom I'd made this journey, and 2 others, sat down, upturned one of our suitcases, pulled out a pack of cards, and played bridge. Sun hats on and everything, and I've got a photo, and that's one of my outstanding memories of 4 mad English women playing bridge in the middle of no man's land, China.
Dear Pete, I'm sure you've already worked out that fantasy never lives up to reality, but I'm not going to tell you to stop dreaming. I'm going to tell you the opposite, in fact. Don't lose a sense of what you want out of life. Imagine your life past the age of 25 now, because you need to be able to imagine your life after 40, because one day you'll be that old. Don't stop creating. Take compliments better. You're not as bad as you make out. Learn to express what you want in life, or you lose your sense of self. You don't know it yet, but you'll go to uni and you'll do very well. You'll never gain the confidence that you should, though. So start telling yourself now that you can do things. P.S. Get a dog.
Hello, I'm writing to you today as someone who has lived 50 years longer than you. Your road in life will be different than mine. However, I would like to say grasp your opportunities, whether in work or play. Embrace your friendships and keep in touch with everybody you know in and out of the family. Your path may not always be smooth, but ride them out and allow it to be your learning tool or curve. There will be changes that you will not be able to do anything about, like technology, ideas, and clothes. Adapt if you can, as it will help you to be with it.
Dear kids, my teenage years were so different from my younger years when the war dictated everything we did. Life held no prospects. At 15, with school behind me, with lots of like-minded friends, I find myself living in a kind of euphoria. Fun and fulfillment were there for the taking. Although a little sad that education was not something I could do because of our financial position, I was quite happy to get a job with money at the end of the week to give myself some independence. My first job was £2 and threepence for a full 40-hour week. I was allowed to keep 10 shillings and threepence while my mother took the £1 10 shillings that was left. My life was ballroom dancing and walking. It was hard then to appreciate the beauty of Wales, as the Llanelli coast was littered with scrap iron. Swansea was a wasteland of bombed-out houses and shops covered in rubble. But as time went on, things were repaired and replaced. Music and American films were exciting, and for the first time in my life, at 15, I got a glimpse into a new life that could be. So that's going back a bit.
Going up and watching Hay St Mary's football matches, even though I didn't really enjoy football, it was walking past the changing rooms and the smell of wintergreen coming out from, and then just watching the players' legs. That was the only bit as a hormonal teenager that I enjoyed. My dad used to run the line, so we used to have to get out of the house on a Saturday, so it was like getting 4 of us out from under mum's feet. I thoroughly enjoyed my Saturday job, which was in a grocer's, The local bakery used to deliver the bread, the cakes and everything every Saturday morning. Even as a teenager, I was allowed to use this massive ham slicer, which was really dangerous. You wouldn't be able to do it now. And a cheese wire. So the cheese used to come in blocks like that, and we used to just slice the cheese. And the reward for that was being able to choose whatever we wanted to eat for lunch when we had our lunch break. So I always used to choose a freshly baked bap with cheese and ham and salad cream, and we could choose a cake for our pudding, and it was always a custard slice.
Harbin Heilongjiang. I loved the small white room that I shared with my friend Senya, the wide wooden windowsill we would sit on cross-legged, smoking cheap Chinese cigarettes, breathing in the hot street air. The night market, tables full of axolotls, black and pink. A obnoxious American boy who used me as a bank. The Bank of Donna, he called me. I still miss you. Russian girls who called me Serious Lady Donna because I couldn't stop laughing at inappropriate moments. Learning Mandarin from Lao Shi Yi and Lao Shi A. Wo Shen Ti Bu Hao. This is a moment caught in time that I can't stop going back to, even in my dreams, especially in my dreams.
I was in my 40s. I passed my driving test on a Friday. I felt so pleased with myself, but then the driving instructor, I said, will you drive me home? He said, no, you passed your test, drive yourself. So I had to drive myself 3 miles home from the test centre to home. But the journey began the following Tuesday. I lived in Worcester Park, which is near Kingston in Surrey, and the head office of the company I worked for was in Romford in Essex. And so on the Tuesday morning, I had to get onto the M25 and drive all the way around to Romford. So I got onto the M25. I got in what was then called the granny lane, which is the slow lane, and stayed in it at 50 miles an hour all the way to Romford. People overtaking me like mad. I got off the M25, about another 4 or 5 miles, and I was just pulling up at the last set of traffic lights before I had to turn into the office. They turned red, I'd stopped, and all of a sudden, bump, something hit me from behind. Very, very gently. I looked in the rearview mirror. It was one of my male work colleagues, grinning and waving to me.
Lovely.
He didn't hurt the car, he did it on purpose.
1993. Camp Mitre Peak, Alpine, Texas. Ellie Belly, Guppy, Texan Tylenol Girl Scouts, Western Saddled Horses, Dry Creeks, Garth Brooks, Two-Stepping, Cowboy Boots, Heart Racing. It was flipping hot. Coming of Age, Bonnie Raitt, Me, at Camp Mitre Peak, 1993.
Got white fluffy socks on, and I did have cats in them, but I've stained them so bad now because they're white. Can't really see the cats.
I believe in magic. I'm not witch or wizard or anything, but I just do. I do believe in magic. So that's my fun fact.
I don't know if you know, but at your peril, you'll ring me up and talk to me on the phone, because once I get on, you won't get me off. I talk far too much on the telephone. So that's a warning to everybody. To me, the long past is far, far more relevant and vivid than the future. I can't remember what I did yesterday, which happens to a lot of people, but the past is like a picture in my head. So don't get me talking on it, or again, I don't shut up.
Well, I toyed with the fact of the fact that I like earrings and don't feel, and the longer the better, don't feel right unless I've got some earrings in. But I hit upon the fact that I use my hands a lot. I gesticulate all the time and use my hands to talk. I'm not doing it now because the hands aren't there. But when I was at school, I used to have to sit on my hands in French lessons because my French teacher hated it. So there I was sitting on my hands trying to do French.
I have 5 children, but I used to take in young minor offenders those that had only done a silly thing, but they weren't wanted. And they stayed with me, and they became part of the family. I had two to start off with, and then one left, and I was left with a guy called Robert, who was Anglo-Indian, and he'd smashed a window in Taunton because his mother and father had been killed in a road accident, and he just took out his angst on this window. So he was a minor offender, but he had nowhere to live. So he stayed with me, and he just became part of the family. And the lovely thing about it is he still writes me. And I've never forgotten him. I mean, he's now in his 50s, but it is such a lovely, it's my fondest memory, I think, although I've got wonderful memories of my children and other things I've done. But to me, Robert is very special.
In a family of psychics, or I guess I can say that because my father and his two brothers both psychic. I'm one of my brother and I are the only two who can't sense anything, but I believe in ghosts very much so. And I got a whole host of stories about it, but that's a little odd fact that not everybody know.
All the books and everything I read, and all shows and movies I watch, pretend those fictional characters are by my side, motivating me to a challenge. And sometimes I use that sort of weaponry to fight what I feel like. For example, if I feel like scared or anxious or anything, I just think to myself, it's only the Dementors and all that. And also if I ever felt like if I was in the dark or anything, and there were times where I would just run to my light when it was dark, and just to block out everything, or I would just get my wand and just say the usual expecto patronum, and just so at least then I got some light to just to comfort me.
I love being outside, even though I hate being cold. I love being outside. It just gives me like happiness. It just makes me feel so relaxed, just being outdoors and just like in fresh air.
I once had a summer season job miming the keyboard for a cabaret band twice a night, 7 nights a week. I had to pretend to play.
I've represented a sports team internationally. Roller derby. Yeah, I've skated in Europe playing roller derby for the Swansea team.
An interesting fact, I think it's interesting, I've broken an arrow with my neck. Silly fact is when I hear some words or phrases, quite often my brain just presents me with a song. And I've got this song going through my head. And then an odd fact, despite being English, I learned to type and do shorthand in Welsh in college.
It's been a mixed feelings about this session today. I've landed up feeling better than I was when I first started off what the project was all about. And I think I've been uplifted by everybody else's comments and what they have gone and done. And it's brought good memories through bad memories.
I suppose I would say one thing that always sticks in my mind, I've got an absolute abhorrence of ironing. I do not iron. If you show me an iron, I'll run out of the door. Seriously. My mother used to play the piano. So I grew up listening to the piano pretty much every day of my life. And though I don't play music, I've got a musical ear. So I can hear if there's a note out of tune. But that sort of translates to something else, because if I'm on the phone, within 3 or 4 seconds, I can tell the mood that someone is in, whether they're low mood or they're high mood or in the middle, and match it.
One is, Del was talking earlier about breast cancer, and I was one of the women who, 2 or 3 years after Del went through all her testing and things, that took advantage of what she helped to do, because by the time I got to need help in that direction, I was asked if I minded if my samples were sent to the States, and I said no. And it was because of the testing that she underwent that my treatment was so much more precise and neat than it would have been 3 years earlier.
I got married in Vegas at the little white chapel, which was actually in temporary premises in a laundrette, and I got married by Elvis.